Looks like we have a couple of more folks straggling in, but we'll go ahead and get started. It's so nice to see you all back here in Ponte Vedra Beach. I hope the hurricane was a non-event for everyone. I'm still catching up on sleep, as I'm sure some of you are. It's always exhausting to have to evacuate and come back, but we are very fortunate that there was no adverse action here at Vickers Landing, and we can come back to our nice home here in Ponte Vedra Beach and get back to a normal life. And normal life here means things keep going on, right? And so I'm happy to be able to present to you just an update on the master plan process. This is a draft. It's just an update of where we are and what we're looking at. I will have some time at the end to take some questions. Kendall Bryan is here, so all the tough questions will go to Kendall. I'll take the easy ones today. And I do want to start, of course, by recognizing and thanking the residents who were involved on the master planning committee. That's Doug Wilson, Sherry Tatham, Sue Foley, and Priscilla Woodhouse, in addition to board members Steve Crosby and Todd Hickey, and then the management team. So you'll recall we started this process a long time ago with an architect firm called SFCS, and that was the dreaming phase. We had a group event during that process where we had, about 60 residents, associate members, family members, staff, all involved in dreaming about what we might need to do. And we did have certain goals that were set out then, and we carried those goals through to the firm that we're working on to get to this next draft. That firm is called RLPS. And these are the goals that we had set out as a group and we're looking at as we went through this process. First, we know that we need to replace or reposition the health center in the Stratford. We are behind the times there. There are changes, a lot of changes in healthcare in this industry, and so we want to make sure that we're offering state-of-the-art healthcare offerings to our folks here. I will tell you that's not going to be presented today. We're still working on that part of the plan, but that is an important goal in this process. Second is to enhance and reimagine community spaces and outdoor spaces for current and future residents, which includes sizing spaces to better fit the needs. The chapel comes to mind there. I had a lot of feedback from when we first moved the chapel over there that it was already too small. And so we had to look at opportunities to increase the size of the chapel, which has been defined to me as the soul of Vickers Landing. We also wanted to improve the main campus driveway and entry sequence. We wanted to create additional parking spaces. Parking has been our Achilles heel for 36 years now, and so I believe we've got a good plan to help with that. We needed to design an operations center to more efficiently support both campuses, and then consider, in the long term, addition and or replacement of independent living homes. Now, we don't have that plan done as of yet. That would be long term. As you can imagine, if we're going to make any changes to the independent living homes, one of the obvious, the glaring modernization things that we would need to do in the independent living homes is have higher ceiling heights. And we can't do that without destroying the building and rebuilding. So that's a big logistical issue. So that will be far into the future. We're not ready to have those discussions as of yet. Now, some things that I did want to note to you as we get into this conversation. Once again, this is still a draft. There is still work to be done. The architects are still working on it. The team is still working on it. And we have time. As I mentioned, we're still working out the Windsor Health Center and Stratford plan, so that won't be displayed here, but we are working on a good plan to put that together in one building to have additional memory care here on this campus as well. So we would have the assisted living and memory care at Oak Ridge, and then assisted living, rehab, and memory care here on this campus as well. One thing that is the most sure thing in this plan right now is a parking structure that has an operations center. That's going to be in the near-term plan, and we are moving forward with that piece of it, but that's the only piece that is a sure thing at this point. And I will show you that in just a moment so you understand what I'm talking about and where that will be situated. The remainder of the work will not begin at the earliest until phase 3 is complete. So we're talking about the middle of 2026. Besides that parking structure, the middle of 2026 would be the earliest that anything would be done on this campus. We have plenty of time to work out any kinks. In parallel, we're working through financing of the project, and people have asked that, how's it going to be paid for? This is not, our approach to financing projects like this is not, let's come up with a plan and then figure it out. We solve for the project. So we say we want to maintain debt service coverage of this amount. We want to maintain days cash of this amount. And then we solve for how much we have to put toward the project. We will never put Vickers Landing at risk to do something like this. And that will drive the timing of the project as well, because we'll be coming off of phase 3 at Oak Bridge, and we want to make sure that we're never putting Vickers Landing at risk. So that's all being worked on with our financial consultants. So again, plenty of time to review and discuss this. This is just a start. So I'd like to start with the parking structure. Now this is the campus as it exists, except for this building right here. What's back there right now is called the barn. If you've gone back there, you've seen it's just a metal structure. We have maintenance storage in there. We have our laundry facility in there, and then a little bit of file storage as well. It has served its useful life and does need to be changed. And the laundry needs to be a little bit bigger to accommodate both campuses. And so what we are looking at is creating a parking structure with a first floor that would have our maintenance storage, our laundry in it, but it would also provide parking for staff. So that's the location. It maintains Vickers Woods. So before that question comes up, Vickers Woods would still be there. We would probably need to close access to Vickers Woods while this is being constructed, just for safety's sake, because there's some big equipment we would need to get back there, but Vickers Woods will remain. And this is kind of a sketch of what it might look like from the outside. As you can see, we plan to clad it on the viewable sides to make it look like the rest of the buildings on the campus. So it just looks like another Vickers Landing building. And there's a great deal of tree coverage back there on all sides. So it really will be pretty well hidden. As you can see, we anticipate that it would have about 79 spaces for staff parking on the 3 stories deck. And then in that bottom part, right in this area, so that's the entrance up to the parking deck, right in here is a ground level entrance that would go back to our laundry, maintenance storage, a paint shop, a wood shop for our maintenance crew, and then parking for all of our golf carts and some of our Vickers Landing vehicles. The buses probably wouldn't go in there, but all our cars could be parked in there. So that frees up a lot of parking around the campus for residents and guests. So that's going to be a critical piece of all this. Because what that also does is once we get to the point where we can do the remaining construction, then we also have space on the campus for what the construction company calls laydown areas. So that's when they bring in supplies that need to be stored on site that will be used as they go along. So freeing up all that space from the parking lot also gives laydown space, which then becomes available parking space. So that is the only sure thing in this project. We would look to be doing that later in 2025. The financing for this is in the financing for phase 3. So this is something that just supports the operations of both campuses going forward and frees up parking on this campus. So my next slide is a proposed front drive view as you're coming into Vickers Landing. There were changes that you'll see that there are changes to the roof line that help us accommodate the goals that I had showed you previously. And in doing that, some of the functions that we have here needed to change. They needed to move, they needed to be improved, they needed to move in order to have the size we need. But we've heard obviously a lot of feedback from residents, particularly on the parlor, about the light, about the view, the glass, the space. And what our architects have done is spent a lot of time listening to the residents on the committee. We shared with them the responses from the survey that went out, and they've come up with a plan. You're going to see one exterior here, but you'll see an interior as well. The plan increases the size and increases the light in that space. So with that preface, I will show you an imagined front entry view. So it does move the porte cochere. It does put the entry in the middle of the building. You'll see that the current entry, which is right here, becomes the chapel because there's a great deal more space. It allows us to accommodate the needs of the chapel going forward. You'll see, I will show you an interior view of the proposed chapel in a few slides, but the stained glass that is in there remains. So we will move that stained glass. And this stained glass, some of you may not even know is there. So if you go into the chapel and turn around and look back over the entry doors, we have this stained glass window that was designed and built by our own Tony Marini to honor his wife. And so I'm proud that we're going to be able to make that a bit more prominent as well. You'll see that in the interior view. You see it does shift the parlor down here. We changed the roof line to create the same height, the same scale. It actually adds square footage to that room. That room does get crowded when there's an event in there. And you'll see, because of the architecture, there will actually be more light. This is a different view. Actually, on this, I did point out that this is at 4:30 p.m., so the architectural software allows you to put in a time of day and a time of year to show how shadows cast, that sort of thing. So that was something that had come up before as well, so thank you to the architects for creating that rendering. And this shows it from, if you're standing behind the pool looking back, this is what you would see. So again, the new entry. But as you know, this is a false exterior wall that has an overhang, just supports an overhang, and then the glass back there is where the current parlor starts. So this wall does create some shading, and that wall goes away with a new parlor view, much more light. It's light on 3 sides. There's a small wall on both sides that captures light. And then as you'll see when we get to the interior view, it maintains that light, adds additional space, and makes it much more usable for larger functions. All right, so the next slide zooms in on this, so don't worry about this. This is just to show you a larger scale orientation. So this is the front entry. This is Duffield. The pool's over here. I want to point out this breakout that you will see a little closer in the next slide is the second floor of this building. So this is the first floor. We're right here in the auditorium. If you took this piece and laid it on top of this, that's the first floor and second floor. And I will show you how we're working through some of the common spaces as we go by. And then one of the comments that we received, you might recall from the SFCS, the original architect plan, We had talked about the Stratford being used as a staff building, and we got some feedback on that. And so RLPS has made some changes. This is an addition behind the kitchen that would add a 3-story structure for the executive offices, staff break room, and that sort of thing. Right now, this is where the security golf carts are parked, and there's a housekeeping storage shed back there that you don't see because of the wall. So since we'll have that space freed up from the parking garage, all the golf carts would be back in there. We were able to use this space to just put the executive staff out of the way. So, all right, a little bit closer, it zoomed in. So I will go around the building clockwise. I'm going to start with the second floor of this building, which is this side over here. So this is just open space to the top of the auditorium. So this is where we are now. The current boardroom becomes a resident conference room. So that space remains. There's some storage up there. And so a nice space for residents to have meetings. And we're moving some of our activity space up there. Some of the group fitness. Well, I can't even see the writing on mine. But so the group fitness is up there. Classroom space will remain. I think that changed to, flex room, yoga, meditation, group fitness, that sort of thing. And then this side is kind of salon and spa services. We're still working through how that will all lay out and be done. The architects have put on here a salt room. They're looking at things that people are taking a lot of interest in, especially in areas and resort areas like Ponte Vedra and Charleston. I'm not terribly familiar with salt rooms. I don't know that will remain, but that's an option up there as well. So moving some of the group fitness and the classroom remains, and then move the salon and spa services up top. And at the end of this, there is an open area, and then all that open space that is in the lobby is open to the chapel below. So then coming down to the first floor, this is the auditorium. Just reconfiguring the back does add some additional room for seating, so it expands that space just a bit. And we maintain our fitness. Something that we're looking at here is moving the art room to give it a different location since we had moved the parlor. It still has some good light from the windows and some good space for storage, which is certainly always needed in the art room. Here, the architects have contemplated a small theater. So theater seating, we can show presentations. The movies that we show here in the auditorium could be in there. Smaller meetings and events could be held in there. All those business center kinds of needs are just kind of moved into this little triangle. And then the chapel is here where the current lobby is. You'll see that in a couple moments. There'll be an interior picture. Now that will have doors that can open or shut to what would be a card room, but also can be a more multi-purpose space, almost like a classroom that you would go to after church service to hear more about the sermon. You can just spill into that space as well, so you can use it for receptions after a service in the chapel, something like that. But also card room and that multi-purpose, the trivia things and the sorts of activities that we have in there. In this plan, the library moves down here. We're working on how flow and walls would work in here. But what I do need to point out here is that right now, this is all exterior walkway as it is now. Here, we're going to propose closing that part of the walkway off so that there's more space, more square footage indoors. But then this space remains exterior area. The exterior seating that we currently have for the cafe would remain exterior seating for the cafe. So library, some nice soft seating, a reception right here. Marketing would move here toward the center of the building, right where the lobby comes in. Blue Heron stays roughly in the position it's in. We'll open it up some, make it a little more accessible. One thing we did talk about a lot was the fact that right now we have a lot of compartmentalized spaces. And sometimes you want a bigger group or you want to see what's going on. And so this is a much more open plan. Just like so many of you moved into your homes here, you opened up the kitchen, wanted a more open plan. Same idea here. Fewer walls, more open space. So the cafe stays in its general location, the orientation changes just a little bit. Mail would move right here, and here's the new parlor that would have a significant increase in square footage right up to the water. Activities, so Janice and Megan would move back here, and then the wood shop stays just about where it is. We have some future space that we can consider. This is the boutique that remains where it is. And then you'll see it flows in from the cafe into the lounge. Now this configuration, the seating configuration is really there to show what kind of seating we can get. The configuration we know will change. What we've talked about is moving the bar so that it is right here with the back of the bar to that window. That's something that's being done a lot in resort areas, and then it creates a better flow from the cafe into the lounge, and then this wall would move over here and then down into the dining room. We also have this purple area, which is just off the lounge. It's an extension of the lounge, where we can have the billiards, a table in there. That could be kind of a club room right off the lounge, so you can still order drinks and food from the club, from the lounge, and then enjoy it in there with having games with some friends, what have you. Restrooms remain in the same area, where the configuration changes slightly. And again, in keeping with the idea of having more openness, more light, more visibility, this wall is actually a glass wine room wall. So just like at Aqua Grill, a lot of the high-end restaurants, they use wine racks, enclosed wine racks for walls. That's what we would do there. So we can get rid of that wine refrigerator that's taking up space, and just creates a different visual for folks. We are talking about enclosing some of the exterior walkway here for seating that is a little more waterfront. We don't have seating on here. As you can see, it's all still being contemplated. But then the main dining room maintains its location. Configuration, again, changes slightly. And then we do have, where we have the Estes room and the Ponte Vedra room, again, orientation changing a little bit. So it can be part of the dining room or closed off for private functions. And then this is a private dining area. It can also be a chef's table, chef's demonstration area, that sort of thing. So we can improve on our dining offerings there, dining activity offerings. And then, as I mentioned, staff buildings would be right here behind the kitchen, kind of out of the way. Now, you may have heard that we've been working with a group looking at a aquaponics greenhouse that would help support our operation. We would have farm fresh produce. We would basically create the salad bowl there. This is a relationship that Jim Cooper put us in touch with, and we have it tentatively put right here next to the boutique. Again, that's not necessarily a permanent spot. It was just to show that we had space for it here on the campus. But that'll support our dining operations, and it becomes an activity for folks who are interested in gardening, that sort of thing. You'll be able to participate in helping with the aquaponics greenhouse garden. Okay, Now I do have a couple of interiors to show you. So this is a rendering, an interior rendering of the parlor. You're already inside the parlor at this point, but the square footage, again, does increase. We will keep the color scheme, we'll keep the furniture scheme, we'll keep the artwork scheme, but you have more space, and you can see here, there's light on 3 sides. This side, it goes right up to the water. So beautiful views, keeps that clear story. You have light from up above, and just makes it a nice space and a bit more usable because it's increased in size. And then one additional rendering, interior of the chapel. Again, we'll keep the same spirit of the chapel with the wood roof, and this is an image of the actual stained glass. So the actual stained glass would go in this space. There's more space in here for seating, so we'll be able to accommodate groups so we're not spilling out into the hallway. And then again, this goes right into that club room, that card room. So there can be functions that come from the chapel into there, or it can be closed off for its own purposes. But then this would come right up to the water as well. So beautiful views out front, a lot of light, and much more space for the folks who enjoy services in our chapel. So that is what I have to show you today. I'm happy to take questions. Again, this is all rendering. This is all being considered, and your resident committee is still working hard on this. And again, the only sure thing in this at this point is that parking garage. So Janice is going to run around with a microphone, so just keep your hand up and she will get to you.
Bruce, on the chapel.
Yes, sir.
What is the seating capacity of the existing chapel, and what will the seating capacity be of the proposed chapel?
You know, I should have kept that in my memory.
Bruce, the existing is about 35.
Okay, the existing is 35. I want to say this is between 50 and 60. Does that sound right? Sherry, Doug? Yeah.
Another chapel question. There is a reception area behind the chapel. Is there a second door to get into it?
Yes.
You had referred to it as a card room. How do you get into the card room without walking through the chapel?
Great question. Thank you. So, as I mentioned, these doors can open or close, but there are also doors from the main hallway.
Okay, second traffic question. I live in Amesbury, and I usually walk to the dining room through the doors in front of the auditorium out onto the exterior sidewalk.
Yes, ma'am.
Around the pond.
Mm-hmm.
How do I get around to the food area without using an interior hallway all the way?
Okay.
Is there an exterior sidewalk now, or has that been completely eliminated?
So you can continue to walk through here. You can walk around the lake this way if you wanted to stay outside.
But you can't get to the pickup area, the take-home pickup.
This is exterior until this point, and then you would go interior. Or you can just stay interior here to come up to wherever the pickup point will be.
What's the purple room at the end of that sidewalk there?
Here?
Yeah. Can you walk
this is-
through there?
Yes, this is library, and there's some soft seating here for just enjoying people's company. So you can walk right through there.
Bruce, where is the member's office and our, well, we have 2 rooms actually.
Yes. So this is the member's office, and this is the space where the Vicar's Voice is, and where you have copies and computers. So those spaces are still here, roughly in the same area.
Bruce, one of the beautiful parts of our community is the green space that we have. Is that going to change in any way in terms of losing some, or?
Instead of losing, how about gaining? So once we do finalize the healthcare areas, this is the health center now. You see it takes up a huge amount of real estate. That will be going away. We know that. And so as you come in, we have the central pond. All of this will be green all the way back to this pond. And so we'll redo croquet back here, redo bocce, but then all of this will be green. And there will be kind of a loop road, not a general purpose road. There needs to be wide enough for a fire truck to get through if they need to, but we won't use it as usual car circulation. But then this whole space is going to be opened up, and then everything else remains the same at this point. She's coming one by one now.
Related to the green space, one of the major charms of this campus is are the trees.
Yes.
Does the site plan preserve all healthy, mature trees?
Yes, it does. You know, there may be a few trees that come back down here, but not many, because there aren't many trees. This is a driveway now, and then our barn. So I don't anticipate much coming down there. We will need to take out some trees around the health center, but we will be adding some landscaping as well. So the majority of the tree coverage that we have now will remain.
Are there any plans for making the pool an all-weather pool? And what is a salt room?
First of all, will you define for me what you're calling an all-weather pool?
12 months a year.
Do you mean
Covered.
you mean
It can
an
be
inside
covered.
pool?
Yeah.
Okay. There are not plans for that. We actually did look at that at Oak Ridge. The space you need, and of course, you know, all my colleagues up north have inside pools. You walk in, you're hit with chlorine. You know, it's certainly a different feel. What we have done here is make sure this was resident driven. We have the pool both heated and cooled to make sure we can maintain an even temperature in the pool year round. But the idea right now is that we remain an outside pool, which is typical of Florida.
And the salt room.
And the salt room. The salt room. So the salt room, as I've done my own research to understand that better, and there are actually a few salt rooms. There's one here in Ponte Vedra. There's one very popular one in St. Augustine, from what I understand. But it is a room you go in where a wall is Himalayan salt. I believe some of them have salt on the ground, and you basically sit in a lounger and enjoy that space, almost like a sauna, but without the heat. And the research shows that Himalayan salt pulls toxins out of the air, pulls toxins out of you, and so you feel better and more refreshed.
Would we be better off with, and that's the last place to have whirlpools? Wouldn't the money be better spent in a whirlpool situation with everybody, as we age, get arthritis and what have you?
So the question here is, wouldn't it be better if we had a whirlpool or a hot tub? Yes, we get to maintenance and Department of Health issues when you get into hot water pools, but that's certainly something we can look at. I don't know that we would do it on the second floor of this building just for obvious reasons, but we can certainly look for space on the campus to add a hot tub, whirlpool. Has anyone used a salt room before? Just out of curiosity. What's that? Well, and that was my initial response. Apparently, there were people in the group who have used them and thought that they were, you know, a wonderful thing. So I'm not a spa person. I don't have. Of course, you have the microphone.
Bruce, I've got several questions. One, do we lose the conference room that's right across from the chapel there?
Don't lose it. It moves to the existing boardroom, so it's actually more space.
upstairs. The second question is, there's no art gallery proposed in what you've got, that you lose that hall.
So this would be the hall. This is the hall that has all the solid walls, so that same feel would be here, and just down from the new art room.
Another question is, on the Blue Heron, is there a bigger kitchen there than there is in the current plan?
Yes, the finishing kitchen there would be bigger, and it's also easier access to the main kitchen, which, you know, you've seen them go back and forth to the main kitchen.
Right. Well, is that space, the brown area there that's Blue Heron, does that include the kitchen, or is the kitchen in one of the purple or gray?
Kitchen's this gray area here, that light gray.
What is the purple there?
The purple is the billiards
Pool room.
area, lounge, the extension of the lounge.
Right, thank you very much.
Okay. Next.
Regard to the memory care and assisted living.
Yes, ma'am.
You're having both memory care and assisted living on both campuses?
Yes, ma'am.
And are you increasing the number or decreasing, are they staying the same, the number of spots?
So, assisted living and memory care are under the same type of license. They're both assisted living, just a different designed purpose. So we would be increasing the number of assisted living beds on this campus, but we would be decreasing our healthcare number of healthcare beds. That's happening industry-wide. It's really something the federal government is pushing for, is to decrease Medicare serviced areas. So it would really be much more rehab, a smaller area for long-term care. Most of the people that we have taking advantage of our long-term healthcare beds are there because of memory care issues, not physical issues. So they can be managed in a nice memory care area.
So you'll be increasing the number of memory care?
Increasing the number of memory care as well on both
On
campuses.
both campuses?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Bruce, thanks for the presentation. The Stratford is a jewel. It's a heck of a positive marketing aspect. A lot of us made a decision to come here rather than other place because of Stratford and what it has to offer. How do we maintain the space that Stratford has into the new plans, and how do you, where exactly, I'm sort of not, I don't follow you completely on exactly what you're planning to do. You're going to do away and create a green area there,
Right.
which is wonderful. You're going to have a green area, you're going to have more space for croquet and bocce or whatever else. And then you're going to put next to that a new facility.
Yes.
It's going to be the wellness center, assisted living, and memory.
Yes.
So how's
So
that going to be done?
the current plan, and again, we're still working out the plans for that, which is why I don't have it in this presentation. But the plan is that a new healthcare building would go where the Stratford is now. So the Stratford is a 25-year-old building. It is a nice structure, but it was built for the times. And so the new structure would go where the Stratford is now, but it would house our healthcare and assisted living and memory care. Okay. Yes, sir.
This has to do with the entrance, and I have a hard time trying to figure out what is the problem we're trying to solve by moving the entrance.
Part of it is knowing where to go. When you come in, your eye is on the existing parlor, and then the porte cochere, the entry is on the right, and so it's a directional thing. It is just the logical flow from a marketing and sales standpoint. Is you pull in, your eye should be drawn directly to where you're going. So that's part of it. But the other part of it was moving spaces around to accommodate what needed to be bigger and modernized, like the chapel, like the parlor, those sorts of things. So when you're shifting things around while trying to maintain the existing footprint, things need to move. And so it all works together to accomplish a couple of goals there.
So it was more the increase in space for the other things that were driving this?
That was the largest driver of it. Right. Yes, ma'am.
As you know, the first presentation did not have a parlor, and that's one of the reasons. Oh, that's one of the reasons why the petitions were given to you in July. And 186 residents of independent living in Sawgrass signed that to keep the current parlor where it is. And the big concern is all this development doesn't create income to help pay for it. And so did you evaluate leaving the parlor where it is and creating a plan to do what you needed to do? Because the existing parlor is a gem, and the new parlor that you plan replaces it, but not to what it is today. And to move the entranceway, just so people don't get lost, I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me. And I just feel that by moving the parlor, you've created this chain of moving everything. And the card room, I don't know what the square footage is, but I hope it's at least the size that it is. But the existing parlor, I still feel should stay where it is.
Okay, thank you for your comment. I know with roughly 500 residents on both campuses, not everyone will be happy. I know that because I've worked here for 18 years and that's always been the case.
But determine what the additional cost is to make that decision.
Yes, as I told you, we are in parallel working on the financing side of this. We know what the additional cost would be, and we weren't just trying to move the parlor, but I also want you to understand that those petitions went out and were signed without knowing what might be. So it was saying, I want it now, without knowing what it could be. It is, in this configuration, it is larger, has more light, it is a more usable, functional space. And so we took all the feedback and comments, and we had many conversations. You can talk to the residents on the committee. We had many long conversations with the architects. We did consider a number of different options, and this is the one that we all agreed accomplished everything that we wanted to accomplish while maintaining the same spirit and feel of the parlor as we have it. So thank you.
With all due respect, people to sign that petition signed it so you could keep the parlor where it is because they love it. And also because they were very concerned about the cost of what was happening.
I understand that. Thank you. Yes.
Bruce, what was the thinking behind having a movie room in addition to the auditorium, and how many seats would there be in it?
Number of seats is escaping me. It's not a huge space. It is something that modern CCRCs have. A number of my colleagues have theater rooms that they say are very well used. And again, this is still in draft. But it is something that could be a nice amenity for folks to use going forward, and so that was why it was added in there.
My question is, I love the way we can go walk around the whole inside, around the lake, and to see it just one walk down one side and maybe half a walk on the other. I think that takes away from us being able to get where we want to go, like Lori was saying, to pick up your food, etc. To have to go outside, inside. Maybe that building could be pushed back a little, just to keep that walkway.
Okay. Sorry, I can't write and talk at the same time. Thank you for that. What it does by adding, by enclosing this part in the north building, what it does is add square footage, which adds additional space for amenity space. And so that's why that happened. We were very clear with them that a number of people enjoy outdoor dining from the cafe, and so that needed to remain, which is why that was done. So, it does keep a lot of the exterior walkway, but just takes away that north entry to create more space. But I've written that down as a note to discuss with the group in the future.
Bruce, what do you expect, or do you have a rough budget, or not budget, or objective in terms of the cost? This is all great for the marketing in the future, but we get no revenue from it. So it creates an issue in terms of where the money's going to come from. You mentioned earlier that you're going to be able to release some space for more cottages, as I understood it, in this campus. So what are your rough ideas going forward in the revenue side?
So first of all, at this phase of a project like this, especially when it's multiple years before we would even start, it doesn't make sense to cost anything out because of inflation, construction cost changes, those sorts of things. So we have not cost anything out. As I mentioned, we will always solve for financial security here rather than solving for the cost of a project. So we will not enter into a project that puts Vickers Landing at risk. We have had discussions with the committee. They're not ready to share at this point. There would be some space where we could add additional independent living, which brings in revenue from entrance fees and monthly service fees. It would be around that central area. But I'm not ready to present that at this time because they're still working through a lot of that. But that's a consideration.
Well, no, I hear what you're saying, but obviously, the more you spend here, the tougher it's going to be to get coverage with debt. So you must have a rough idea of what you are willing to spend for these renovations.
Yes, our finance team is working on all that. That is, we're working in parallel. I don't have anything to share with you.
All right.
But also keep in mind, we just added a number of different homes at Oak Ridge that help support overall operations and debt service going forward.
Okay.
Hi, Bruce.
Hi.
Would it not make more sense to combine the card room and the movie room?
Combine them how?
So they're using the same space. Why would we have a movie room?
Well, because there was an opportunity in here with the additional square footage that was added. There was an opportunity to add an additional amenity for residents, and so, but those areas aren't contiguous, so I don't, they couldn't be combined unless you're talking about two different spaces with the same purpose.
You lost me there.
Okay, so card room, theater. So, you said, couldn't we combine them?
Well, wouldn't you use the same space for both activities, is my point.
Well, certainly that
We always use this room
sure,
to show movies
sure,
as well.
that certainly could happen. Again, this is draft, so that space could be under consideration for something else. Just as the card room can be used as a meeting space, a gathering space, and as it is now. But here, having it adjacent to the chapel adds it to the chapel as part of that project, as part of those activities as well.
Right. Also, going back to the salt room,
Mm-hmm.
I think you definitely would have to do a little selling on that.
Mm-hmm.
I personally have a salt lamp,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very nice.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't imagine going and sitting in the salt room.
I have a salt lamp as well, but
And I think that's enough for me.
again, it was something that was new to me as well. Again, none of this is finalized. It's all in draft. Who has the microphone here?
I do. Here.
Oh, hi.
I noticed this is all involving Sawgrass, and with the additional people, especially now that Oak Ridge is pretty much built out, and there's essentially minimal space for indoor or outdoor activities at Sawgrass, at Oak Ridge. Is all of this planning, which was done before Oak Ridge, designed to accommodate the extra people, the extra 300 people at Oak Ridge?
Yes, and this planning is past Oak Ridge. We started planning Oak Ridge 8 years ago. There's an increase in the auditorium space, an increase in the chapel space. Any spaces that we're increasing are in part to accommodate folks from Oak Ridge, which also includes that maintenance area, the laundry area. So we had additional space to support operations of both communities.
Hi, I live in Oak Ridge, and I have never had the opportunity to attend one of the movies that you have here. Is it correct that they are currently shown in this room?
Yes, right, Janice? Yes.
Okay, and what has been the feedback from the people who do attend them here? Do they not like it because the room is too big, or is it just fine?
It's fine. It is probably 10 people, about 10 people who come in this space, sit in these chairs to watch the movie. So the idea of adding a theater is nice theater seating. If you go to a modern movie theater, that kind of seating, smaller space, you can, part of the problem with the auditorium is that when there are events, the setup of the space is different for a lot of the events. So this is set up for kind of a lecture sort of program. Sometimes we need to bring in tables. And so it takes a long time to shift things around. So we can't, sometimes it's difficult to book the auditorium because of the setup needed for the next function happening. We wouldn't worry about that in the theater space.
Thank you.
Yes.
I have a comment to add to Joan's information about the theater and the card room. At Oak Ridge, the scholarship committee is having difficulty finding space to have a meeting because the card rooms, plural, the card room and the private dining room are being used to such a great extent by various card games and tile games that there is no meeting space. Joan, I want you to think about whether or not you want to combine the card room for multiple purposes. Once it's filled with bridge players or mahjong players, then meeting space is gone.
And actually, in reference to that, I talked to my colleagues a lot about this theater room because that's not something that we've had here, obviously, in the past. And another way that my colleagues use that space is if there's a lecture with maybe 20 or 25 people that would come, they can use that for lecture space, for meeting space, that sort of thing. The problem with the theater room is you can't reconfigure the seating, so the seating is all looking forward, so you have to consider activities that maintain that level of seating. Forrest.
Bruce, one of my early questions to you when we first got here was the fact that we have brown columns on the current entryway. And I realized that we're going to be a few years delayed in all this coming to be. Any chance we could find the money to pay for some paint to make the columns white today? I think it's a horrible color to enter any place with brown columns.
I know you feel that way, Forrest. Yes, you don't like the brown wood columns on the porte cochere. We have actually talked to the architects, and I told them, please make sure those columns aren't brown. I will see if Edinburgh has some white paint somewhere. See if we can do that. The problem with painting these now, it's not just the white paint, it's also renting a lift and those sorts of things because it's a high space, so it has to be done safely. Who has the microphone?
In your original presentation, if you could go back to where that first slide was, where you had the campus, you talked about building the new health center with assisted and nursing at the end of, the lake there, or the pond. So I don't, have you redesigned, are you redesigning everything with Stratford and what you're going to do? And
Yes.
when will we hear about that?
Well, when they're ready, this presentation is earlier than I would have wanted, but I wanted to respond to the parlor, and we had to find a time that worked to get the auditorium, as I was discussing. So the Stratford is right here. This would be redesigned as the new healthcare building. They are still working on the plans, as you can imagine, that redesigning that space. It's an unusual space because of the curve of the lake and because of the road adjacent to it. And so they are working on that. It would kind of spill into this area. We would also have an enclosed outdoor space for our folks with memory care issues and an open outdoor space for our other healthcare folks. So that's all being worked out, but it would be right down in this area right here.
So it's still planned to have the healthcare assisted and
And memory
memory all
care.
in one building?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Will we be getting copies of the renderings where the layouts are, so we could actually sit down and digest all of this?
In due time. I will not do this because, again, this is so draft, and I've done that in the past, and people get upset about something there's no need to get upset about. So this isn't ready to come out into people's hands as of yet. When we get further along, I will absolutely have more opportunity for you to review. We'll have handouts, but it was too early at this point. I just wanted to get in front of you with an idea of where the thinking was at this point. Yes, sir.
Could you go back to the map of
the floor plan?
Yeah, the floor plan, sure. How do you get into the dining room from the east side of the campus?
From the east side of the campus, well, you can come through here.
Right, so you're going right through, you go through the bar in order to get into the dining room.
Yes.
And that's an interior?
It's all interior. Everything's interior.
You come from the outside to the inside, and we've eliminated all of the walk area around the pond.
Right. We've eliminated a lot of walls as well. So this is all kind of flows together.
So you wouldn't be eating outside the Blue Heron. You'd have to go across an interior walkway to get to an eating area that's outside.
Well, right now you go across an exterior walkway to get to the eating area for the Blue Heron.
No,
So
not quite. It's also
it's that same space. It just has a wall. So this is the current exterior wall. This is the new exterior wall.
But you're coming in through the bar is what you're doing.
Yes. And again, that configuration is just there to show what kind of seating would fit. That's not a final configuration. It will have a better flow.
I've seen those restaurants in Baltimore. They always have the old ethnic restaurants. They always have the bar in front and the dining room in back. That sounds like what it is.
But, and traditionally, pre-COVID, those who were here before COVID, remember that the lounge was the first stop before dining as people were coming in. COVID changed the way things happened there. Yes, ma'am.
I would encourage you to give more thought to the walkways. For people on walkers or wheelchairs, having to go in and out a lot is difficult. For those of us who walk dogs, to get to the mailroom and pick up and all of that, that looks like a very circuitous route for many people. And so it looks to me like there could be some additional configuration around the pond that would lead to convenience for those of us of this demographic.
Thank you for that. I think you will find that it is not circuitous. Obviously, the entries will have automatic doorways, so we're going to make sure of that. One of the problems with the current exterior is those bricks kind of get uneven. So if you are walking with a walker, it is better to have a carpeted interior space or a laminated interior space because it's safer if you have an assistive device. But I will certainly talk to them about flow and making sure that that's clearer and better to use. Thank you for that. Okay, I have a couple more minutes. We're coming up at the end of the time, and unfortunately Darren has set up a meeting for me right now that I'll need to run to. Yes, ma'am.
What will happen to one of the existing health centers? I don't know if you explained that or not.
Yes. So here's the existing health center. All of this will be green space. The new healthcare building is being structured in this area, which will include parking and movement for vehicles, and so that'll be part of this. But we're also considering, I mentioned we were looking at areas for additional independent living to support revenue for the project, and we're considering on each side of this green space. Again, that's just being fleshed out, so I don't have anything to share at that point.
Thank you. Can I ask you what, on the previous picture that you showed, we have a group here who sail their boats periodically?
Yes.
How do you get around the pond?
So, you get around the pond the same way on these ends. This is all exterior. If you use these sides, then these would be interior, but there's this patio remains. There's patio space here that remains, and so the regattas can still happen right there. If anyone who's involved in the regattas, if you have some thoughts on that we need to consider, please let me know or let one of the committee members know. Again, Doug, Sherry, Sue, or Priscilla.
Bruce?
Yes, ma'am.
Just real quickly, can you give me a tentative date when this would be started so I can plan?
Sure.
I'm not going to be here that much longer, so if
come
this
on.
is 20 years out, I need to know it.
Well, Mrs. Zimmerman, I'm counting on you being here for a long time. Enjoy our conversations. But I mentioned the only sure thing is that parking structure, and that will be done later next year. The earliest anything would start here would be mid-2026. But that is assuming everything is finalized, that we're comfortable with the financials and that sort of thing. So it might be as late as 2027. We have some time. The health center, everything would be a part of that. It would be a phased project, so I don't know what would start first, but anything that starts on this project, other than that parking structure, wouldn't start until late 26, early 27 at the earliest.
Bruce?
Yes.
Two things I want to mention. In conjunction with the salt room
Yes.
and the hot tub, I don't know if you've ever considered an infrared sauna.
Infrared sauna.
Yeah, I think that would be
Another
a better
one.
option than a salt room.
All these things I'm learning about.
Okay, and the other thing I just want to pick up on what was just mentioned. I think the dog walking is very important, that people can get to the pickup area with the dog because the dog is not allowed inside.
Correct.
I need to talk to you outside quickly.
Correct. That might be an operational thing we look through, but I will make sure we are considering dogs and meal pickup.
Also, number of steps.
There won't be steps.
Longer route for people who have walking difficulties. That's an issue.
So you wouldn't have additional steps. I mean, this.
If you're coming from Inverness to the dining room, you have a lot of additional steps.
Just you can go right through there. This hallway shifts up a little bit, but everything else is the current corridor is right here. So that that walkway. Okay. I have put circulation on my list from your previous comments, so that's something that we will consider. I can do one more question, and then I need to get to my meeting.
Hi, I understood you to say here, that the first thing that would be starting would be 2026. How does that timing relate to the healthcare, the memory care, and the whatever over at Oak Ridge?
And that is the why. So the assisted living and memory care building that are being built at Oak Ridge will be completed in around the end of the first quarter of 2026. So that's why nothing here would start until that, because we need to get that project done. Because if we were to work on the healthcare here early, we would need capacity over there to make sure that we have rooms for folks. So that's part of it, but then part of it comes with financing and those sorts of things.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. I'm happy to answer other questions. Remember your